Well, I have your contact info.
Yes.
All right.
Reach out to you.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Cheers to Comics podcast. I'm your host, Brian Wayne, and this is episode like 411 or something. And with me, in a very special moment right now, here in the store, live with an audience for the first time ever, is Mr. David Dwonch.
Hey.
Signing a book right now to two happy customers.
Nice.
How are you, brother?
Dude, really good. Sort of like a little buzzed. I'm not gonna lie. There's too many breweries, and I'm
Saturday.
down for all of them. It's Saturday.
It's Saturday.
It's a day that ends with day.
Yeah.
I'm drinking. I'm
Let's do
drinking.
this.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to have you in the store. It's an absolute honor. We're up on stage. This is kind of cool. I'm feeling pretty legit right now.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna lie.
I haven't been on stage since my old ska days. I'm older than you think. But I was in a ska band.
Oh, really?
yeah.
What's the name of the ska band?
It was called Spanky, and it was like a Bay Area band back in the day, and obviously lots of plaid. But like we had like my two best high school friends, and they were always like, "We got to be like No Doubt. We have to have a female singer." And then ultimately, we had like three singers. Those dudes fell in love with each singer each time and made it awkward for me. So I was like, I got to just go make comics. So that's what we're doing now, just making comics.
Here we are.
But yeah, I played
Signing
drums for
comics.
like the longest time, and then I quit for comics because you can't do two things at once like that. You can't be an expert in two things that demand 100% of your time. Right?
Exactly.
So now I got a drum kit at home. And I just kick back and play.
I'm sitting here agreeing as I own a comic book store, comedy club, all these things that need 100% of my time. But that's the thing is I put it all into one, just kind of that way.
Which is the trick, right? It's like, how do you combine every love that you possibly have into one thing? And thank you. And honestly, for me, it was like I love drawing.
Yeah.
Love it. But and I was pretty good at it, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? I think I'm only drawing because I have like stories to tell. And I'm like, I could tell 10 stories in the time it would take me to draw half of one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be the most prolific not artist that I can be,
Whatever it takes.
whatever it takes. And it's been like 20 years now. So I guess something's going right.
Absolutely. I mean, look at all. I mean, if I adjust the camera, it'd shake like hell. But if you could see your line of work, your body of work here that you have laid out, and it's really not. I mean,
This isn't even half of it,
Yeah,
really. Like
not even half.
I have, sadly, I have a garage full of comics, but my own stuff. But I brought all of my horror stuff because we're coming up on Halloween, so it's all the spooky business.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that the store's going to have some of the spooky stuff. Come by the store, pick up the scary business that I make, and then maybe in spring next year when we're all feeling happy and bunnies are running around and whatnot, I'll bring in the cute stuff.
There we go.
But yeah, right now it's all the dark stuff.
It suits.
Yeah.
Definitely suits.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of dark stuff,
Hit me up. Email me anytime. Like, for real, great to meet you guys, for sure. Yeah.
thanks for coming in, guys. Yeah, well, speaking of dark stuff, the topic of discussion today.
So dark.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Like this conversation is almost going to make it officially October. That's how dark this is going to be.
It's real dark.
I've done over. I don't know. I lost track of counting after like 120 scrolling through my feed. Over 120 interviews, and I can honestly say there's only been one other person that's ever wanted to scratch the surface of this topic.
Yeah.
If you had to guess, who do you think it would be?
Oh my God. In town? Are they local?
They're not local.
Oh,
But
shit.
I'll give you a clue. You've done a panel with them recently.
Oh my God. I've done too many panels. Who was it?
It was Rylan Grant.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. I mean,
He's a
shout
sweetheart
out
of a
Rylan
man. I
Grant.
love Rylan.
He's the best, man.
And he and I have worked together, actually. And I won't say that we had the same experience because I was on the other side of it. Guys, I'm gonna, where's this camera?
Right
There?
there.
Oh, right there. I'm going to admit that for a brief moment in my life, I was part of the problem, and I am not part of the problem now. So apologies to anyone that feels like they've done wrong, but I'll explain everything in this podcast. Ryland and I published a few of his books. Always loved Ryland's energy. He's a great writer. Worked in Hollywood. He, as I would say with anyone, and Action Lab, I'm just going to throw it out there now.
Yep.
Whenever anyone would come in, I was the creative director. So my job was the coolest job ever. I got to just find the coolest shit to make.
Right.
And that included Ryland stuff, right? So it's like, I had so much fun going through Artist Alley and then just making connections, talking to people, having that one-to-one human connection with them, right? And it rapidly became, as the creative director of this company, that I was kind of becoming the face of the company because I was out there hitting the streets and whatnot. But I always told everyone that was going to sign this contract, which I was never 100% behind this contract. From the get-go, I'm like, this doesn't sound like the best deal for creators.
Right.
So I always told everyone that if you were going to get a book published from us, with us, to just make it your first book. Don't make it your last book. I don't want you to bring me the story that you've been holding into your heart and your mind for like 25 years and you just feel like you need to get it out there. We worked with a lot of new creators. We worked with a lot of older established creators like Jamal Igle. But we found people like Jeremy Whitley, like with Princeless, right? So it was a really good smattering of stuff. And I have to say, it may not be reflected in my own work, but I felt like I have impeccable taste when it comes to stories and art and all that good stuff. So I was able to find, people like Rylan that were already established as writers, but wanted to break into the comic industry. Jeremy, I remember I met him. We were at a Heroes Con in North Carolina, and we were in a place that is very, very common for new creators. I call it Sex Offender Alley, but what it really is the furthest fucking aisle from the front door facing the women's bathroom. I'm like, thanks again for putting me here. So now I just have to like listen to toilets flush and like make eye contact with ladies that just put their pants back on. It's a fucked up place to be. You know what I mean? I don't love it. Some dudes probably love it, but I was like, no, this isn't cool. And it was a really, really terrible show, this Heroes Con for us, because we were brand new. Company didn't even exist at that point. And I sat around with a bunch of artist friends that I was like, cool, we're all having a shitty time. Great. This is not going to be a great show for any of us. So then I started looking around the table. We're all drinking. And I'm like, well, clearly I've got like the front man. And it was my friend Sean Pryor. He's just the most charming, just eloquent, smart dude. And I was like, you're the president of this company. You're the face of the company. I'm the guy with impeccable taste. So I'll be the creative director. One of the artists was a lawyer by day. And I was like, well, great. You'll negotiate contracts. My friend Sean Gabarine is a horror writer and just one of the best, most thoughtful writers I know. And he writes the Puppet Master stuff. And he does his own stuff now. He did Black Betty for them.
Nice.
For Danger Zone. But I was like, you're the editor-in-chief. You're the guy that's going to be the one that cultivates the talent into something great. And I was like, this is the company. We have a company now. How do we make it work? And so it's so crazy. The origins of this company are bonkers, because the same weekend that I met Jeremy Whitley was the same weekend that we founded Action Lab. Jeremy's book goes into a box of my own books and then gets shoved into my garage. And then we start making this company. We're doing it, making a contract, doing everything. And the lawyer friend that was working on a book and also, worked administrative for Action Lab was like, we need to infuse this company with money. And I was like, cool. All right, money. We do need money. We're all artists. We're all writers. We don't know shit about shit. What do we do? Right. And so what we did with our first Kickstarter, well, first of all, I guess I have to back that up. So the lawyer then brings in one of his friends who's a medium-sized business owner in Pennsylvania. And he infuses the company with like 20 grand. We're like, oh, cool. And then we do the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter might have come first. But we do the Kickstarter and we make like $8,000 or whatever it is, right? And we're like, good enough to make this one book. Mm-hmm. And then the business guy's like, well, why wouldn't we just go buy our own printer for $8,000 and make our own books? And I was like, that's not a bad idea, right? That's controlling all aspects of your business, right? Cool. So we do it and we start printing our own books. And, I think what you fail to realize at that point is anything that goes wrong, you're to blame. So if you misprint something and you need to reprint something, all that paper, all that ink, all that stuff, it's on you now. You can't just complain to a printer.
Right.
Be like, replace this.
Exactly.
So learning curve is what it is. We did probably about 5 books on that per press. And then we were like, we're big enough. Yeah, live. we're big enough to just go through regular printers now. Cool. All right, great. Now we're doing that. And we all knew that the money guy was going to have more share in the business. But then as time went on, he kept infusing money into the business and kept getting more ownership of the business. Now we have less and less of a say in our own business. And so then it was just like, well, we're really just happy. Like the creators are just really happy to have a place. Because like the thing about comics that, people call it predatory all day long. And yeah, that's true. Absolutely 100% true. But there are so many people hungry to get their books out there that they almost create the environment with which people get preyed on.
Yes.
Right? And that's why I was always like, if you're going to do a book with us, just do one book. Don't do a ton of books. Make it your first, not your last. Use this as a calling card use this as a calling card to go get work at Dark Horse or Scout or IDW or anywhere, right? So like, I will say that a lot of the creators that we early on worked with, Sue Lee is one of them. Fantastic artist. She's working on that Carmilla book for Burger Books. She's worked on a ton of books. She's fantastic. And if you were to look at the first book that she did, I wouldn't say it's forgettable, but just from where she was to where she is, you're like, she did it.
Yeah.
She kept it going. There are plenty of creators that like, and I mean, pretty much all creators hit Action Labs, so whatever. But like, there are plenty that want to kill everyone that was ever involved with it because they brought their one book to us.
Right.
And I'm like, just go make another one, man. Like, don't be bugged out about it. You're a creative mind. You have passion and spirit. Don't let something crush your spirit, But yeah, I mean, there are plenty of issues in the comic industry contractually. Like after the Action Lab thing, I wouldn't sign a contract for years. Yep. I was like, I'll just start my own studio and just make my own stuff. Like, I don't want to have to deal with the politics of it all. That said, like you have friends in the industry or you're walking around a convention and you're pitching to like a Dark Horse or an Oni or whoever. Like, if they say yes to one of my books, I'm not going to be like, no. Like, well, why did I fucking show it to him in the first place, right? I showed it to him because I wanted to get published by them, and that's happened a couple times. And I can't say, other than the Dark Horse contract, which is, to me, like, when I signed that, I was like, what a great contract, and what a great company, and not dissing the other companies I've signed contracts with, but that was the one company that I was like, they don't want my media rights? Cool. Awesome. But I even asked them, I was like, don't you want my media rights? Like, I feel a little butthurt that you don't want my media rights. And they were like, no, you're just writing the craziest book that we've ever seen in our lives. And we think it's impossible to make as a movie, but we love it as a comic book. And I was like, that's the best compliment you can give me, is I wrote a comic book that like can't be adapted.
See,
great.
That's, to me, that's the perfect comic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, that's what everybody's goal is, to get on TV. But at the same, like, if you have a story that can only be told the right way in one medium, like that's the perfect thing for that medium.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that's what it's for. Was, I mean, I want pictures. And I want word balloons,
sure.
And I want to adapt these feelings myself.
Yeah,
and
that's fair. That's fair.
To me, like, that's the perfect comic.
Yeah, I think that, like, the economics of comics is also just another factor into shitty contracts, right? Like, everyone wants success, but they forget that success is making the fucking thing.
Right.
That's number one, right? If you can't just think of an idea purely as an idea, if you're like coming into an idea being like, I need to make $1 million idea, you're pissing in the wind and the wind's blowing right in your face. Like, there's no way that you can do that. Like, for me, a lot of my work is like super personal. And so I don't necessarily always think of them as like movies or whatever. What I do is, right before bed, I just take the phone and I just write down every dumb idea I have, right? And then I wake up in the morning, and I guess I should preface this, but by sometimes I don't remember what I wrote because I might be under the influence of something, which I'm not saying that you should do at all. I'm just saying that sometimes I've been drinking or sometimes I've been smoking, and I'm like, oh, what a kooky idea that just comes into my head. I'll be watching something and be like, that's all right, but like Rick and Morty explodes my mind. Like, I'll watch Rick and Morty and be like, that's cool, but what about this multiverse thing that doesn't make it, like it makes sense in my mind, but doesn't make sense. So I'll just jot it down into my phone. And then in the morning I'll wake up and be like, sometimes I'll be like, who wrote in my phone last night? I don't even know what this is. But what I'll do is I'll go back to the phone every 2 weeks and look through those ideas. And I'm like, which of these ideas is still sticking in my mind and what is in my heart? Because comics are an investment. Like, you're not going to write a comic book and not pay your artist. You might be able to find someone that you're like, we're 50-50 partners in this, but like comics are a lot of the time a zero-sum game. You're not making any money off of comics. So like 50% of zero is zero. So pay your artist is what I'm saying. Like, don't think that like you can dangle the carrot of fortune and glory, like Temple of Doom style, and think that that's going to be a thing.
See, I'm glad you say that, and it's kind of nice to hear from another professional like yourself, because I was once that idiot on the other end of the carrot. There was a brief point in my life where I was like, fuck it, I'm going to try this. And, I had someone else who's like, I don't have any money, but I've got this idea. But hey, there's all this comes with comics. And, it lasted about a year before I was like,
The only way that works, in my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion. So like, I can't wait for people to comment on this video. It's going to be really weird and awkward. But like, if you're going to not pay an artist, the commitment level has to be way lower, right? Because like, I can write a splash page in 5 minutes that describes everything that needs to happen on this like cosmic world-ending page. But then the artist has to go and fucking draw that. That's going to take them 12 hours, right? And so like, in my opinion, if you're going to ask an artist to be a 50-50 partner in a project, get their commitment that if it gets signed by a publisher with an advance, that this is the amount of money that's split between the two people. And like, then you also have to realize that if you're going to sign a contract with a publisher that gives you an advance like that, a lot of times they're going to want to take ownership of that. They're going to want to take 50% of your media rights, or maybe more, sometimes less. But it's like it depends on what your level is at the minute that you're presented an opportunity. Are you willing to concede your monetary goal for a potential for more later? Or are you going, but maybe even less, because if the company takes 60% of your media rights and gets made into a movie or whatever, like it's not yours anymore. And that's why I always say, well, then why not just kickstart it? Because you could kickstart anything. Yeah. And if you're within reason, you can get it made. Like, I have 3 books on this table that are kickstarted, actually 5. 2 Kickstarters I didn't do. I just contributed stories to their anthologies, but there are 5 books on my table right now. Half of my books are kickstarted. Like, why wouldn't you do that and then do business on your own terms?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely that's definitely something that I've during COVID for sure, that took off like hell. I've seen so many creators just jump on Kickstarter and just be more successful to the point where I'm like, well, I don't really see them getting pushed through publishers anymore, because they found their way, and then it'll get picked up by a publisher later. Like, I've seen that plenty of times too.
You know what someone should do is I guess give it with an idea. Ryland, you and me. So what someone should do is just create a distributor for Kickstarter only books.
Oh shit.
Why isn't that a thing?
Why isn't it a thing?
I don't know. I mean, you could sell your own books on Kickstarter after the Kickstarter's over now, on the way that they do things. Yeah. But why not talk to comic shops? Like, what I've found in most creators that are at a certain beginner level or even like moderate level is they feel like if they get picked up by a Dark Horse or an Image or a Boom or an IDW, that it validates everything that they've ever done in their lives. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was very true too. And I was like 45 when they picked, 43 when they picked up, 43. No. It was maybe 46 when they picked up Jenny Zero, right, at Dark Horse. And I was like, finally, I've arrived. And you're like, finally, yeah, that's true. And then, yeah, Dark Horse is going to sell more books than
they sell books.
They sell more books than like a lot of companies out there. So like I sold more of that book than any other book. And did that help my name? Absolutely. Right. But like, should that have been my mark of success? No, I was already successful before that because I was already making shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, why do I care? Now I'm 50 and I'm like, I don't really care anymore.
Having a different company's picture on your book is this crazy validation that people seek out. And, it's, yeah, I mean, I get it. Everybody wants that, it's great for the resume.
Yeah. Well, and everyone thinks that image is the way. And I think image is the way, especially contractually, like they don't take any of the media rights, but they also don't necessarily have a dedicated marketing budget for your book. They a lot of the sales at Image, you're going to sell up to a certain amount because it's an Image book. It just will. You're going to get the speculator market that's like a new Image #1. I got to buy it. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have the people that are like, well, I like this creator. I'm going to buy it. I like the art. I'm going to buy it. The creators retain all their rights. But, how many of the breakout hits, how many more failed books are there than breakout hits, right? Like, not to name drop or any of that, but like Tony Fleece is a friend of mine, a good ass dude, did Stray Dogs.
Yeah.
Came out during COVID. Jenny Zero came out during COVID. Mm-hmm. People were they were speculating. Everyone was waiting for the next thing to shoot a drop. People had extra money for some reason. Not for some reason, you had that stimulus. Or you were just working and not driving to work every day. Right. Saving money, all that shit. So it was like people we created an environment for success in comics during COVID. And like right post-COVID is probably more.
Yeah, it's all a blur now. But
yeah, it's more accurate. But like during COVID, I just reached out to every editor I possibly could because I knew that they were stuck at home. And that worked. Like that's the way you break through. You make the contacts. It's not necessarily about who you know and who your friend is, because comics are so small that everyone's your friend or everyone's your enemy. It's one or the other. So you've got to figure out what lane you're going to be in. Like, you look at some of the like larger names in comics and you hear they're dickheads. Yeah. And I'm like, well, yeah, because they can afford to be dickheads. Maybe they were always dickheads. I don't know, but maybe they were being nice when they were coming up because they had to be. And now they're just like, fuck you, And I'm like, I don't love that either. Right.
No, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, but then, you talk to Arthur Adams. He's a friggin' legend. Yeah. Nicest guy on the planet. Right. Best guy.
Yeah, no, there's so many of them. I mean, I've met so many creators that I was like, here we go. This is, we'll see.
I've had some experiences too. And, I'm pretty upbeat. I'm pretty energetic. I'm pretty nice. And, it was so bad for a while there that people were thinking I was disingenuous because I was nice. And I was like, no, man, it's just everyone else sucks. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not me, it's them. No, yeah. Don't judge me on their sliding scale of niceties. I mean,
Macho Man said it, the cream rises to the top. Yeah, so when everyone else is just slumping around and you're like, because I met you at a con a few years ago, walking by your table. I mean, you were the one standing up next to two other people sitting down. And I mean, it's that energy. I mean,
I will say that about people sitting down. Most times they're artists and they like draw for people and stuff. And so they're like head down. But I was doing that when I first started out. I was an artist. And then I realized that like comics are really about the connection between people, between fandoms. Like, I love arguments about shit. Like, the argument used to be Star Wars versus Star Trek, but now it's like, now they're both pretty much even Stevens and everyone can like have their cake and eat it too, or, chocolate peanut butter or whatever. But like, we still argue about comics, like me and my friends. Like every time my nerd friends get together, we're talking crap about what happened in the last, run of Daredevil or whatever it may be, you know, because I'm a purist. I'm a weirdo about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like back to the predatory nature of comics. I know that that's what we're actually really talking about. It, my experience with it, you know, I would always warn people. Sean Pryor would always warn people, you know, and then I was creative director. Sean moved on, and then I became the president of Action Lab, and I was like, cool. I get to change all these contracts now. I'm Mr. President. You know, I get to do whatever I want. And they were like, no, you know, we out, like, it is a democracy in that we all get to vote on it. But the people that own the percentage of the business have a higher, the vote counts for more.
Yeah, the people that, you know, strive or, you know, end up making more money off the deal in the end.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, like, without those people, we probably would have been out of business a lot sooner because we were not business-minded people. We were just like everybody else, right? But I knew that contract sucked. And I don't want to get into it because I know there's a class action lawsuit. But and bless them, go for it. Like, if you guys win, then everyone wins. Well, except the company, but whatever. 70 plus creative teams get their shit back. Good, go for it. Get it done, you know? But I quit the company, and on my way out the door, I knew the contract was shit. So every single book that I put out through the company, I never signed a contract. Never. And I was like, they kept asking me, and I always just running around like, I'm traveling this week, next week, yada, yada, right? And then as I was leaving the company, I realized that, you know, it wasn't going to be lucrative for the creators. They were going to hold all of the creators' rights in perpetuity. Negotiations were always difficult, so I knew that was going to be like an upscale, you know, uphill battle. And I fucking signed away all my books in a show of, like, you know, unity with the creators. And my wife to this day is like, "You're an idiot." You know, like, why would you do that? And it was literally because, like, you can't walk the walk. You can't talk the talk and not walk the walk. You can't be creator first and not lean in with that, right? Yeah. You can't say that you can't contradict your own beliefs. And I felt like if I walked away clean, which I could have easily done, I was like, this is going to keep me up at night. This is going to be something that, like, this is a bad business move, but I don't care. Like, I'm going to be with Ryland. I'm going to be with David Pepos. I'm going to be with Jeremy Whitley. I'm going to be with, hell, Dan Mendoza. I'm going to be with all of my friends that I made throughout the years, that 12 years, 10 years maybe I was in that company.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a company that I named. It's a company that I created the logo for. It's a company that I did all the graphic designs. It's a company that I did probably 40% of the logos for all of the books that would come in. I'd be like, I love your book, but this logo sucks. Let's change it. And then they'd be like, well, what? And I'd change it. And they'd be like, yeah, you know, that kind of thing. So I was doing a lot of, like, stuff that, and by the way, I never got paid from Action Lab. That's another thing.
You never got paid?
I made sure everyone else got paid first. Because when I was president, I was like, I have a good job. I have a good job, and I'm we had a really good living arrangement. My wife and I, like, I had an art studio above my garage. It was a detached garage, detached from the house. We were living in the Bay Area, and then we were living in this 3-bedroom house in the front. And then I was like, why don't we just, maybe my wife said this, I'm not sure, but she was like, well, why don't we just move into the art studio, put in a kitchen, put in a bathroom, it's already plumbed, everything's good, and rent the house for our mortgage and live for free. And I was like, cool. And we both had really good jobs at the time. So I was like living for free and just putting all the money I made into making comics. And so when everyone asks me, how do you make so many comic books? I'm like, I'm just real fucking smart with my money. Like, that's the way I did that. But because of that, I didn't get paid by Action Lab. I just basically, like, it got to the point where, like, I think out of the 5 people that were there, like 4 were getting a wage. I wasn't, but I will say that they, they would be like, well, if you worked X amount of hours, we'll give you that in trade on your books. So I got a surplus of books instead of monetary dollar. And then I would just do conventions as myself. So
there you go.
It allowed me to do that. So, I mean, that was probably the one thing about Action Lab that I'll say, like, hey, I didn't get like a paycheck, but I got to put out a lot of people's books. I unfortunately had to break a few hearts. But haven't we all, people? Haven't we all broken a few hearts out there in the world? And then, when I left, it was just like starting over, because that's the other thing about comics is, on the outside, that looked like a company that was being run. I don't want to say professionally, because that's giving it too much credit. But I would say that, like, on the outside, and with the output that we had, it was a real company. But when you're working for a company and you're getting your books published by the company, you're basically self-publishing, right? Because anything that I send to them, they're going to be like, yeah, let's do it. So, like, I didn't have to talk to editors. I didn't have to network. I didn't have to do anything except look for cool books to make my own books, and that was probably the coolest part about the whole thing. But the economics of comics is very, very problematic. We live in a world where comics are still viewed as a toilet bowl entertainment medium. I can read a full comic while I'm taking a shit, the art is flipped through so quickly that artists pour their soul into these pages, and then I get to read a page in less than a minute and turn the page. We're not in a world where, like, people cherish.
Yeah, there's so few people that actually appreciate and understand how much work goes into that page, that they just like that one little panel with so much detail in it, it just gets glanced by. And it's, I don't know. I was, what was I reading the other night? I was reading Penguin the other night, and just getting to enjoy, like, I'm probably spent 2 minutes on each page at least, just
pouring over the art.
Yeah, exactly, man. And just flawlessness, and just appreciating all of the love that went into it.
Yeah,
but I'm a rare case, because there's so few people that actually do. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like, seeing artists at conventions selling their prints and doing all of that, like, that's how they kind of, I mean, they get appreciated, but they're not blowing up every single panel that they do. So there's so much of their, amazing things that just the world never really gets to truly appreciate, to the level that it should be.
I buy those artist editions, the IDW artist editions, those full size ones. I've got probably 10 or 12 of them now. And like, I just got the Dave Stevens one because I'm a big Rocketeer guy. And there's a documentary on Amazon right now that just reminded me how much I love that guy's artwork. And so I just picked that up, and it made me go right back through my boxes and look for all of his artwork. Now I'm buying all of his covers again. Like, there was a time when I worked in comic shops from when I was like 12 till I was 27, 28. Okay. So I've got at one point I had every fucking comic book you could ever imagine. And my wife was like, what are we doing with all these books? And I was like, you're right. Let's get rid of 30 long boxes. And I just sold them all the half-price books. And then the Marvel boom happened. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I just got rid of hundreds of thousands of dollars of comics that I thought were junk.
Yep.
And I wake up screaming. I sold a first appearance of Deadpool to a guy for $1 at a garage sale because I was like, I don't give a shit about Deadpool. And then the movie comes out and I'm like, maybe I do give a shit about Deadpool. And that book's $300 now.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. But at one point I had 10 of those because I worked at a comic shop. I got I just was buying because I thought eventually I'd open up my own shop, like this fine shop that everyone should come to, by the way. And I just never did it. There was something about the nickel and dime aspect of comics that I was like, I can't do it. It's tough. It's a tough one.
It's definitely, I mean, that's why this place is as many things as it is. Cause comics, the market for it's nickel and dime.
Yep. and the margins are 50% at best.
At best.
But then you got to factor in rent, and that's a whole nother thing, man. Like we were thinking about opening up a shop in Westminster where we live, and we were like, wow, it's like $5,000 for fucking rent on like a place that can't do half the things I want it to do. I'm like, we can't do that. I'm not going to spend $5,000 on rent. Like I could sell one of my books, right now for $10,000. Like, do I need a shop to do that? No, I have pretty cool shit. I'm not giving you my address, but I have some really rad shit from when I was a kid, and then stuff that I've been buying recently. But I'm still like, old school Marvel guy and a post-crisis DC guy. But for the most part now, like those are all in. I think that things like Marvel Unlimited and DC, I think they're both unlimited. I'm not really sure, but it's like $12.99 at most a month or something like that, and you get access to their entire catalog.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
It's insane. It's like, how do you, as an owner, set yourself apart and make your shop different so that you can get customers that may or may not want to read comics digitally or come into a shop for a different experience. Like there's a store in San Francisco called Isotope, and they do store signings, and they have a liquor bar where you could go and they basically are like tip the waiter or tip the bartender. They give away the drinks at these events, and it really builds culture, and the shop is different enough to set itself apart from a lot of the shops that are out there, and that's why it's lasted as long as it has. You're doing a lot of the same here, and I think that come for the comedy, stay for the comics, or come for the comics, stay for the comedy.
It works both ways, and that's the beautiful thing is I get to merge two worlds together and
they're two things that you love.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Like
I actually paid a comedian in comics.
Oh yeah.
I went to pay him. It was like, well, could I just pick out some comics instead? And I just started melting. I was like, this is the greatest deal of my life.
Nice.
Like, this is amazing.
Nice.
So yeah, no, it's incredible being able to merge together and get people that, I mean, I don't know how many comics I've sold to people that never read a comic before.
Yeah,
because they were here for a different reason.
That couple that was just here at the beginning of the show don't read comics.
Yeah,
but they wanted to ask me a ton of questions about like starting a business, which I'm like, great. That's comics are a business. Like I think everyone forgets that. Everyone wants to bitch about the new Punisher. Shout out to David Pepos and Dave Wachter.
Yeah.
Those guys are buddies of mine. And
Pepos has been on the show like 6 times.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's a talker. That guy. Yeah. That guy's fucking great.
That's the best.
So when you record with them, they're they're zooming in, or yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. My wife and I were like I said, I've been drinking. So we're at a Cerebus right down the road, and we're looking at houses, and we're like, there's a 5-acre ranch in Castle Rock, and we were like, oh man, to not have neighbors, to not deal with traffic, to just like live on a compound. I'm like, yeah, man. And then we were like, dude, we could do a comics festival on this 5 acres where we just bring like build a second house. That's our house. And then the 3-bedroom house that's there, we just fly in 3 to 5 guests. And then we have a festival all weekend where like local shops get to come and, boost a signal. And then these guys fly in from out of town, get all the local components. And I'm like, this sounds like heaven. Like
sounds amazing.
It would be rad. Springtime. So it's not like we get some weather. I mean, we get all the weather.
All of it.
But getting the weather in springtime would be rad to get just build the culture back up. Like I feel like comics, and even in Colorado, it feels like we have a lot of creators here, but we're all kind of spread out.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
J. Scott Campbell's here. Monty Michael Moore's here.
Yeah. I mean, Zach Howard's here. Yeah. Jorge, who did it's either Jorge or George. I don't want to be incorrect about that, but the guy who did The Me You Love in the Dark is here.
Jorge Corona's here. Oh shit!
Yeah,
I didn't know
he was just at that horror panel that I was just on.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. He's awesome.
God, who else is here? I mean, hell, Hamza and Travis are 2 people that we go to brunch every 2 weeks. Like they're great guys. They have books coming out. Yeah, Travis is the guy that did the Trailer Park Boys, and we're working on a book together.
Yeah, shit.
And like for Travis, it's like I've known him since the Action Lab days. He submitted a book to Action Lab, so I've just known him forever. We wound up not making his book, but we just stayed in contact. And then it was like I moved to Colorado, didn't have any friends, and I was like, "Hey, you want to kick it?" And then we started talking about this idea. We're working on it like teenagers would, like two friends that just go to lunch and start talking shit and are making this cool thing, you know?
Scribbling shit down on napkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's big boy time though, right? It's like it used to be like midnight at Denny's, and now it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday getting trashed at a fucking brewery. You know, so it's like the same thing, only a little more up to our age. But yeah, I mean. And again, I know that this is a lot, and I know that we're jumping around, but for me, I feel like the nature of comic book publishers, when I said that there were 5 of us and none of us knew how to run a business, and then we got one business person that's running the overarching business, and then you got a lot of people that are specialized in whatever they're doing in the departments that they're working in. I think that's probably what comics are like. I think that there probably aren't as many employees at these companies as you think. And I think a lot of the companies that are doing really, really well are owned by larger companies. You just don't know it. I think that they have financial backing from potentially Hollywood investors. You know, I mean, you look at something like a Boom, and again, not poo-pooing, but I'm pretty sure they're owned by like Paramount or Universal, one of the two. I don't know.
Yeah. I think they've just partnered with someone.
Yeah,
huge along those
So
lines.
basically, they're like making good comics, not taking the piss out of anyone, making great comics that have the option of being made into something else right away.
Exactly.
So that's
I'm seeing. I mean, Scout did that too. They partnered with a company. I mean, there's all types of like indie companies out there that have like got onto these. What do you call them? Again, movie makers. I don't know. Lack of words right now.
Yeah. Studios,
studio. Thank you. But the crazy thing is I'm not really seeing anything being made, years and years later.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would say Hollywood is like being struck by lightning. I've had a couple of like dances in there and had I think I could talk about it now, but Todd Strauss-Schulson, the guy who directed Isn't It Romantic and Harold and Kumar, he did this fantastic horror movie called Final Girls, which I don't know if seen that. It's an awesome movie, but he optioned Cyrus Perkins in the Haunted Taxi Cab, and then he got that Isn't It Romantic at New Line Cinemas, and literally I was like, are we still doing this? Are we gonna make this indie movie? And he was like, nah, I'm making New Line money, right? And I was like, that's cool, I get it. You have to get paid too. You have to make money, and if you're making your own nearly creator-owned indie movie, there's a chance you're not making shit. And he's a fantastic director that's doing a ton of stuff now. He just did that Pitch Perfect bumper show that was on Hulu, which is really funny. He's done a ton of stuff. I flew into San Diego for San Diego Comic-Con one year just to meet him and give him a kiss on the cheek. I went to a midnight showing of Final Girls. He wasn't even going to the convention. It just so happened to coincide with San Diego, and met stars that were in that movie. Fantastic, great guy. I mean, but for me to say jeopardize your entire livelihood to make my movie is sort of naive. You know what I mean? So the option lapsed, but because of that option, it got a lot of attention from other people. Nothing makes a project more desirable than someone desiring it in the first place. It's like, I don't know. It's like the hot cheerleader in school when you're growing up, and every dude wants to hang out with her, but you're like, she's not even likable, but it's just like every other guy loves her, and you're like,
wait, maybe there's
wait a
something
second.
to her.
Eventually I'll be a mature man and identify what really is going to make me happy in life. But yeah, it's just like that weird feeding frenzy that we get into over anything, like comics too. Like this minor character is going to appear in Ant-Man 3. That book skyrockets because everyone wants it for just to have it, or just to flip it, or just to own a piece of history, or whatever it is. But once that goes away, that goes away. So you better make sure that the thing you're making is hopefully timeless, or speaks to an audience that can grow with you as a creator, or Like you look at everything on my table and yeah, there's a through line to it, but it's all different. It's not, I don't stick to one thing and maybe to the detriment of myself. Like maybe if I was just known for one thing, I'd be more successful at it. You know, like Adam Hughes draws fantastic ladies. He makes a bunch of rad covers. He's very famous and very popular. Man, maybe I should have picked a lane, you know, but I'm just like, well, whatever I'm going to do. But again, like back to comics, like every comic company that I know at a certain level is exactly the same. So like to demonize one over the other, you're going to do it because you heard in the news that something happened to that company. But what you're not hearing is the things that the other companies are doing that no one's talking about.
Right.
That's a real fucking thing. And another thing that you have to remember is that the creator signed the contract.
Yeah.
And I've, since the old days, looked at contracts and been like, I'm not signing that contract. Just because my word of advice when it comes to the predatory aspect of comic books is do not sign something that you're happy with today. Sign something that you're going to be happy with 5 years from now if the contract goes past 5 years. And to that end, maybe don't let the contract go for more than 5 years. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's like getting married. You are marrying the person that you love today. But are you going to love them in 5 years?
Right.
Why would I sign that contract?
Right.
And then if you're a publisher, Action Lab, if you're a publisher and you're in an unhappy relationship with someone, it is just like a marriage. To say that we can't get divorced in America is un-American. So think about that a little bit before you hold everyone's projects hostage. We're all in a partnership. Everyone in the country, we are one living, breathing organism together. Like, people that don't think like that are short-sighted, and you see it all day in politics. And I'm not going to get into politics, but because you can hear where I'm coming from. But I will say that the divide that we have between professionals and publishers, the divide that we have between Republicans and Democrats, religion, race, it's all silly business, man. We're all in a marriage together, guys. Like, let's make it a happy one. Like it just drives me bonkers. I don't get it.
It's these companies have these creators shackled, these amazing projects that we're incredible. Like I'm going to use John Layman as an example.
Oh, he's a great guy too. He's been on the show.
He has. Right. You want to know something?
He's a wild child, that John Layman.
I love him that he's actually been on twice.
Okay.
I'm very proud of that because he is my hero. But things, Outer Darkness, for example, Skybound book. It's great. I look forward to it every week. It was the first thing I read every single week.
Yep.
And then it just stopped happening. And I asked him about it. And he's like, well, they didn't really put the money into marketing for it. So it kind of went under the radar and sales weren't there. So I was like, well, can you take it somewhere else? He's like, well, actually, I can't. They own it. Yeah, that's the deal.
Yeah. But I imagine that John, he's been around the block a billion times.
Oh yeah.
John is a stalwart in the industry, but he went into that agreement knowing it. So I'll bet you when he said that to you, it was actually extremely matter of fact. And
100%.
I don't think he was like, fuck them.
No, not in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
No. He had nothing bad to say. It was just like, that's why you don't see it anymore.
Right.
Like that's all there is to it.
Right. Which is super unfortunate. And that's why, if you're in a position to own your own projects, I recommend that. Whether that be an agreement with an established publisher, whether that be self-published, or whether that be in our Kickstarter warehouse that we're going to distribution center that we're going to make. Man. Why did we give that away on this fucking show?
Yeah, fuck.
Why do we do it? We should actually, after the show, we should talk about that, because honestly, then it's like literally, because the creators are paying for their own books to be made, and so like they just need someone to distribute it for them. That's it. That's easy. Why? I mean, I'm not telling you to do that, guys. Anyone who is it? Cameron at Lunar, don't do that, Cameron. I know Cameron. Don't you steal our fucking idea, Cameron.
Don't do it. It's ours.
That's ours. That's ours, by the way. We're gonna make a ton of money on these starving artists. Just the two of us. Bad contracts. I'll take. No. and the cycle continues.
Yes. Yeah. Someone's
Oh my
going to do a
God.
podcast about us. And
Right. We're outed. We're blackballed. Yeah. Hashtag not Dave. Oh my God. That happened to me once. One of my friends is like not real kinky with his wife, but he was kinky. And he was like, oh, I was sleeping on the couch, by the way. I was sleeping on the couch at a convention. Like they invited me over to spend the night, but I had to sleep on the couch. And they're getting down in the bedroom and they're like having fantasy role playing. And he's like, oh, baby, who do you want me to be? Who do you want me to be? And she just like looks over at the wall and says, not Dave. And so they keep threatening that they were going to wear not Dave shirts next time I see them. So I'm going out to visit them in the Bay Area in October, and I want to see these shirts. I want to take one home. It's going to be great.
That's
my
awesome,
God.
man.
I love that people
love that.
have sex fantasies that completely like they're fantasies. It could be anything in the world, but just not Dave. It's so good. Oh my God.
I love it, man.
It's too
awesome.
funny. It's too funny.
That's awesome.
But yeah. So I guess like in just to wrap up the whole comic book thing, don't sign a contract you're not willing to deal with for whatever the duration of the contract is. If something is a red flag, it's a fucking red flag. Like if you're working with an artist that you don't know or trust, get a contract in front of them.
Yeah.
If you're going to do 50-50 with your artist on a project and that's the way you're luring them into a project, then just create a pitch. You could go to any comic book website and they'll tell you what the pitch is supposed to be, and it's usually 6 pages of art. Like any artist can draw 6 pages in a month.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Put them on a deadline though.
Yeah. If they can't draw 6 pages in a month, you're fucked anyway, and you probably shouldn't hire that person.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unless you're willing to wait 2 years for your project. Don't be discouraged when your first project fails. Every project fails. Like I still have boxes of my first project I never bring to conventions because I don't want it to sit on my table and have people be like, what's this shit? And then I'm like, that's the first book I ever did. And then they're like, yeah. And then they pat you on the head and you're like, fuck, I just got patted on the head by a 10-year-old. Like, good job, Mr. Man. Jesus. Gosh,
shit.
Get out and network. Like, don't be afraid to talk to editors. Don't be afraid to talk to other creators.
Man, I gotta say, like, talk to fans too, because you never know who's walking by your table. You don't know who's in the media.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't be on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we didn't start talking.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like,
that's right.
That's what it comes down to. And I can't recommend that enough, because if somebody stops me, even if I walk by their table and go, it's not for me. If somebody stops me, I want to hear them.
Yeah.
I'm more than interested in what they have to say. I'll give them as much time of mine as they want.
Right.
I mean, they're taking the time to pitch their thing, and 90% of the time, 99% of the time, I'll still end up buying it just because of it.
Oh, another thing though too, is if you're writing or drawing a book, and it's a crime noir book that's extremely specific in some way, right? Like there are certain publishers that are going to dig on that. And there are certain publishers that wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. So like know your audience too.
Yes.
Like if you're going to network and you want to like get a book done by, I don't know, like Dark Horse is really good for sci-fi. Dark Horse is really good for like high concept crime. AWA is really good for crime noir. Scout's really good for horror books and all ages books for some reason. And then, Source Point Press is really good for horror stuff too. But everyone's going to have Vault. Vault's very sci-fi, right? But it's like almost like art house sci-fi.
Yeah.
So like if you're know who you're talking to, like it's not just the audience that's going to read it; it's the audience that's going to publish it. And when you're submitting a pitch, the pitch has to be everything. It has to be not just, you can't be like, and then the mystery continues. Nah, bro. Like the publisher needs to know what the mystery is.
Yeah.
Like you're talking to a whole different audience. So you gotta just know where you're going, pick a lane and stick to it for a little bit. And what I mean by a little bit is 20 years. Like I've been doing this for, no, more than that now. I've been doing this for like 25 years. And like, professionally, like before that, I got my first Artist Alley table when I was 14 years old.
No shit.
Yeah, and that was back when I'm 50, right? So that was when the fandom was real dickheady, like real dickheady.
Yeah, yeah.
And they would come up to your table and just talk shit to you.
Well, so what are you selling as a 14-year-old? Like, what book do you?
Sketches.
Sketches.
That's it.
That's fucking awesome.
It was
man.
crazy. I didn't even have prints. And like sometimes I would bring a box of comics that I want to get rid of just to supplement stuff. But I'm always of the opinion that, like you said, always talk to the person in front of you. This is probably the best way to end this podcast. We keep going, but I was 12 years old and I went to a show in the Bay Area and I came with a Captain America comic book written by Mark Grunwald. It was that Mike Zeck cover where it was Cap No More and the flag is bleeding behind him and it says Cap No More behind him and he just looks defeated. Favorite cover of mine. I knew Mark was going to be there, so I packed it away with my little bag. And I came up to him and I said, "Could you sign this for me?" And he was like, "Yes, I can, sir." Like happy Mark Grunwald. And he opens up the first page. And on the first page where the copyright information is, it's like there's smudges. And he looks at it and he's like, this shouldn't look like this. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like what? And he's like, these little smudges. This shouldn't be here. He turns to his assistant and he's like, go find a replacement copy for this kid. And the assistant's like, what? And he's like, at Marvel, we don't do this. He's like, we don't sell defective comics to children. And the guy was like, the assistant was like, fine. And he like leaves. And now it's awkward because they're arguing and I'm standing in front of him. And I didn't realize Mark Grunwald was the editor-in-chief at Marvel. So that's why he had an assistant. That's why he the boss. And then so I'm just standing there. Like, I don't know what to fucking do right now. Like, should I leave? Should I come back? I don't know. And he's like, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, I don't know. I draw, I write. I want to be in comics, I think. And he's like, well, then while we're waiting for my assistant to come back, why don't you sit down and I'll teach you everything I know about comics.
What the fuck? 12
years old, me. And I've got Mark Grunwald, the editor-in-chief at Marvel, who is writing Captain America at the time, pre-Cap Wolf. Guys, sorry. You may like Cap Wolf, but, okay. He also wrote Squadron Supreme. So, hell yeah. But I was like, okay, cool. And then he was like, this is how a panel grid works. This is how many word balloons I like to do in a page. This is how I set up a scene. This is how I do progression. The whole all of it. He downloaded it into my 12-year-old brain, right? And the assistant comes back with the comic.
How long is this conversation? Hour and a half. It took him an hour and a half to find the comic. Yeah. And you got to...
Because it was new at the time, right? But back then it was... Comic-Cons were all about old comics. Mm-hmm. So finding a new comic book would be like impossible. And so the guy comes back with it. And Mark signs both of them. And
so you got the misprint and the...
Yeah. And I thank him. I go on my way and I go home just like, I'm walking on sunshine, just fucking, yeah. Like just fucking jumping in the air. Someone hits pause and I'm just sitting there in the air like, fuck yeah. And I have to say, like, that interaction taught me everything that I ever wanted or needed to know about, like, engaging your passion and writing comic books and being good to people and really kind of nurturing, like, the next generation. So, like, whenever I do a convention and I see a sketchbook in a little kid's hand, I'm like, show me that sketchbook right now. And then sometimes I'll be like, dude, you're way better than I thought you were going to be. And this happened at a couple horror shows where like these little, I got these Vamphlet books. So it's like this book, it's like an all ages horror book. So sometimes dads will come in with like their little daughters into these horror conventions and there's nothing for them. So like they gravitate towards that and I'll get to talking with them. And I've had oddly, like at least 3 adult parents leave their children with me while they go shop and I teach them everything I know about comics and drawing. And then I'm like, come back next year and I'll clear off half of my, like a little portion of my table, start selling sketches. I did it at 14. You could do it at 14. And people are far nicer today than they were when I was 14. I had a bunch of like adults be like, why are you here? Who do you think you are? You're never going to be anyone in comics. You're garbage. And then on the flip side of that, I have Mark Grunwald telling me everything he knows about making comics.
Yeah.
And that happened with me and Mark Nelson, who was the artist of the original Alien series from Dark Horse, that black and white, really detailed shit.
Okay. Shit.
I had brought a giant Aliens poster that I bought. It wasn't at Hot Topic because that didn't exist at the time. I bought it in the mall somewhere, like, I don't know, some gift shop, Spencer's. That's what it was. And I brought it. I unroll it. I bring him a silver fucking pen. I brought everything. I was like, I think at that point I was 14. I'm like, here, this, that. And he was like, I've never seen this poster before. And I was like, do you want it? And he was so flattered that I was going to give him my poster that he signed it and drew a giant, like it was one of the shots from the book, and it had a black border around it, and it had a larger black border at the bottom that said aliens on it. He drew a whole fucking alien on the bottom of it in fucking silver. No shit. And then I was like, I'm not worthy. And he's like, what do you want to do with your life? I was like, I don't know. I want to make comics. I was like, I'm inking now, and I'm a really big fan of your inking style. And he was like, sit down and I'll show you how to ink. And I sat down with him for like 2 hours. And he, at the end of the day, gave me all of his art supplies. I came back at the end of the day to thank him. And he was like, dude, thank you. He's like, thank you. He's like, take all of this home.
That's amazing.
And he was using a Pentel pen brush. And I will never forget this because I kept that Pentel pen brush. It was like one of those things that had a cartridge on it, but it wasn't refillable. So when it went out, I just started using an inkwell and ink and dipping it in, and it got so crusty and gross and awesome that like it became like a part of my hand. And so Mark Nelson's brush was with me for probably 10 years.
That's
fucking sick. I was like,
awesome, man.
Yeah, man. Like that's why I'm like, comics are like it's in your blood, and you can't let people discourage it from being in your blood. You just have to be smart on the business side of things.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to be smart, like I wasn't, sign my shit away. But at least I'm going to show solidarity with the people that I admire, the people that I respect, the people that I consider peers. And then everyone's always asking me, when am I going to get back into publishing? And I'm like, never. Too busy making comics, like I don't have time for that. Plus, like having other people's like happiness in the palm of your fucking hand, that's a lot of fucking pressure, man. Like that's hard to do.
Yeah, man. I mean, especially putting out single issues and all that stuff, and then purposely creating that anticipation, and like then for a month keeping them on edge.
It's a lot of hats.
Yeah,
that's a lot of hats to wear, right? Like you're a creator if you're the creator and not the artist, or the artist and not the writer, but you're the creator. You're constantly project managing. You're constantly communicating with people, figuring out what your budget's going to be. How am I going to get it over the finish line? And then if you kickstart it, you're your own marketing person. You're your own publisher. If you're working with a publisher, you have to realize what they're going to do for you or what they're not going to do for you. Yeah. And then you have to assess those things before the book is even in previews. Because if you don't, you're fucked. Yeah. Like if you're like, I'm with larger company X is what I'll call. I don't know who that is. I'm just not going to name a name because I don't want you to think that this is the way they operate. I have no idea. But like, if you're like, fuck, I'm with, well, fuck it. I can say this. Oh, fuck it. I'm with Image. Hell yeah. I don't have to do anything. Lies. Straight up lies.
Yeah.
Like you have to do everything. Yeah. Like you've got to be your own Flava Flav. You got to put the fucking clock on every day, and you got to go out there and scream about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they put out a lot of number ones, and they put out a lot of titles. It's impossible for a company to focus all of their energy on everybody. Yep. So it's up to the creator to do all of everything.
Yep. And here's a good example, and I can say like, In layman's terms. That's a good one. You see that, John? I fucking got you. But for Jenny Zero, like, we got shot out of a cannon, and it wasn't just because of the misprint on the first issue. Like, that boosted our signal. Like, what's this book? Why do people care? And so people were buying it. But like, we also pushed really hard to publicize that book.
I knew about it before it hit shelves. I definitely saw it coming because of the push for it.
Oh, the push, yeah. So unfortunately, Brockton and I, who is also like one of my goddamn best friends, co-writer of Jenny Zero, he and we were both like, well, we did so well in that first volume that we're going to do really well in the second volume, right? We don't have to push as hard. So we didn't. And the numbers picked up higher than where we ended, but not as high as the first issue of the first volume, right?
Yeah.
So we really hurt ourselves. We kicked ourselves in the ass like idiots, thinking that we have made it.
Right.
And I'll tell you, unless you're, I don't know, in the top 10 percentile of comics, you haven't made it. You haven't. You're all still working for the daily wage. Hopefully you're working another job. Hopefully it's in creative shit. It could be in something else, Like I said, you go back to that round table of creators that were having a shitty time at that one Heroes Con where we created that company. In that group of people, we all still had day jobs. Like, none of us were like, hell yeah, we're established. We tried to get established people to go hang out with us, and they were like, we'll see where you're at in a few years.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's just it's all a shell game. It's all, and you don't know what shell success is under, and they're always moving. So like, what are you going to do? You just have to like do it,
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it comes. I mean, nothing's going to happen if you don't.
Yeah.
It's people, just hope and, something happens for them. And no,
Yeah.
it's all about doing.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's ever going to happen.
Yeah. I like to say, if you don't lift up the toilet seat yourself, you're just going to be pissing all over your bathroom.
Hey.
And that's true. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, literally that's true. But it's true, right? If you don't do it for yourself, what are you going to, no one's going to do it for you.
Right.
Like, it's crazy. And again, like, people that say this small company didn't market my book as effectively as they could have or should have. What did you expect?
Yeah.
What did you do? Like
Exactly.
how much, how much blame can be placed on other people when this is your baby,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, but again, not to discount the fact that there's a lot of shady shit that goes on in comics.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but I'm glad we got to talk about all this, though.
Yeah.
We got to unearth a lot of these things that just your everyday reader.
Yeah.
I kind of take a lot of this stuff for granted because I've heard it behind closed doors, talked to enough creators and everything.
Yeah. You know what? Another crazy thing is like, creators don't want to talk about this sort of stuff because they don't want to feel like they're going to get blackballed out of comics.
Exactly.
And like, fucking Jurassic Park rules, man. Life finds a way. If it's not going to fucking work at a publisher because you said something that is factual and happened to you, like,
crowdfunding is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that everyone has a horror story, and if more people talked about it, maybe we would get to a better place. But I'll be honest, like, I know that this class action lawsuit was going on, so I've been fairly quiet about it, just because I didn't want to hurt them. But I think that I would never speak to their experiences other than I know a lot of them and I care about a lot of them, and I'm pulling for everybody, because if they win, everyone wins creatively. But I didn't want to speak up because I didn't want to I didn't want to straddle the fence. That makes sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
like I wanted to stay very, very quiet because I didn't want to implicate anyone. And I don't think I did. I kept people's names out of it, and you know who you are. But, the people that did no wrong, I'm going to talk about them all day long because they are still in the industry, and they're still friends, and they're still the best people that I ever worked with, had fucking great experiences. Like, there was some shit that went on in Action Lab that was really, really, really good times, man. Like great times.
Oh, I can imagine, man. Because I mean, just based off of the fun comics that came out of there,
Yeah.
I mean, people had to have had fun making them.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I think what we got to a certain point, and I think a lot of publishers get to this point where they feel a growth spurt, and then they're like, we have to keep growing, and then they put out too many books too fast, and they're not curated enough. So the brand identity gets diluted, and the quality of the work is lesser. And then you're just slapping your logo on a book and not taking the care to make it the best book it can be. And that shows. And it may not be something that the readers see and call out, but psychologically, they're subconsciously feeling that. This company's quality has just gone down over the last 3 years. You know, like you hear that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It happened 3 years ago. You just didn't catch on because you needed a track record to say this is actually happening, right? But like, I know for us, a lot of like number ones sell better than number threes, right? So the more number ones you have, the more books you're going to sell.
Right.
But if you stop putting out number ones, the cash flow slows down. So now you're constantly in the game where you just have to continually put out number ones to keep your company alive because you're not putting out good quality books that everyone wants. So you're fucking yourself completely. Don't do that, publishers.
See, this is something that I've been arguing about for a while now, is just the amount of number ones. And it's ridiculous that, you know, you can't just keep something going. You know?
I love the X-Men. Don't get me wrong. That's like my first love, right? But don't ask me to collect 25 books right now. Like, that's like sort of what I don't know. I just want Uncanny X-Men and maybe X-Men and maybe New Mutants. Not even X-Force. I mean, maybe X-Force. X-Factor? Yeah, sure. Okay, 5 books. Sounds cool, right?
Yeah, but that's 5 out of like 18
Yeah.
different titles
Yeah.
that's being pushed, you know? So,
And not only that, but there's a timeline that involves all of the books, and you're just like, God, I got to read all of this. No, I can't.
Yeah.
Unless I was only reading X-Men, would I say, yeah, that's the thing.
right.
But then if you're Marvel, why are you killing yourself? Like with 8 Spider-Man books and, you know, fucking 18 X-Men books and whatnot. Just give me like 3 really good ones.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. But that's also coming from someone that was like way into that early Hickman run. And I was just like balls to the wall into it. And then they were like, ooh, we got a good thing. Let's keep that good thing rolling. And I was like, no, you've diluted the through line, the quality, the thoughtfulness, all of it. And no offense to anyone working on those books. You know, I'm glad you guys are fucking making X-Men books. That's awesome.
For sure.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
no,
But,
it's not the creators' fault that they're making. You know,
Yeah.
like it's
yeah,
no, good on them, man. Make as many as you want.
yeah.
It comes down to the publisher, you know, like.
Well, and it also probably comes down to the public too, right? Like if the public is like, no, we don't want 18 books, the publisher, it may take them a while, but they're going to be like, yeah, maybe we should dial it back to like a reasonable amount. But, you know, I don't know. Like I said, comics are a nickel and dime business. It's hard to justify that sort of thing when I've got like 30 bucks a week to spend on comics, and comics are $5. I'm coming home with 6 books.
Yeah, it doesn't stretch very far.
It doesn't.
No.
So, I mean, it's just stuff to keep in mind. And like, same thing with the Action Lab thing, right? It's like I wanted 6 books a month at maximum. And they were like, I think it was when I left, they wanted 20 to 25. And I was like, we can maybe get to 15. And then they kept pushing it and saying yes to books. So like as the creative director, when you're the creative director and you're pigeonholed into, I need to find X amount of books.
Yeah.
I am less critical.
Yeah.
But
You
that's
got
not where I
quota to
want to
meet,
be.
So you got to,
Yeah, I don't want to be less critical. I want to be like,
you want quality.
the cream rises to the top.
That's
Fucking R.I.P. Macho Man.
Right.
I can't believe we referenced him twice. Can we do it one more
I
before
bet
we
we
sign?
can. I bet we can.
All right, I like that. But yeah, it's an interesting little dance that we all do in comics, man. And like for people that are coming into comics for the first time or want to get into comics, I always just tell people every single time that it's literally like hitting your head against a wall for 10 fucking years, and the wall's gonna break, or your head's going to break. And you got to figure out, is
Mhm.
my head strong enough? Is my heart willing enough? And do I have enough energy for this? And then you just keep doing this until the wall breaks. And honestly, like I said, I've been doing it for like 25 years, and the wall started breaking maybe the wall started breaking 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I would say probably more like 5 or 6 years ago. So like you really have to be like, if you're a gambler, pot committed, all the chips are in. And if they're not in, get out.
Yeah.
Get out of the game. Don't be a tourist. You know, you don't have to quit your day job, but you have, because I mean, everyone needs to eat. Everyone needs to pay their rent, right? But you have to figure out how the economics of comics are going to work, how the business of distribution is going to work for you, how marketing works, and then whether or not ultimately the contract works for you. And if the contract doesn't work for you, even if you love that company, get the fuck out. Leave the room, because that might affect the way you feel about that company too.
Right.
If you're like, God damn, like blah, 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 done me wrong, right? That does no one any good, right? If you already had the hair on the back of your neck saying don't do it, and you did it, and then you're like, I hate them, look a little bit about yourself, So.
Yep. Man, this is all very enlightening.
It's a lot.
Sure.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but it's all, very informative and, important for people to know this.
Yeah.
There's I get so many emails still, from brand new creators doing their first Kickstarter book and all these things. And I mean, it just goes to show how many people are out there trying to break into comics.
Yeah.
And, I said it's predatory out there. So there's a lot of fish just waiting to get eaten up. So I mean, these conversations are necessary,
And you all heard what I said about Mark Grunwald and Mark Nelson, the two Marks in my life. My two dads named Mark. Probably be the name of my biography. But if you guys ever want advice or you want me to look at your book, obviously I'm not a publisher anymore and I can look at it from all angles because I've been on all sides of the table. Just hit me up. It's hellbrain.com, one word, hellbrain. You can find my contact there. Quite honestly, like what gets me jazzed every day is knowing that people are doing exactly what I'm doing. And a lot of them are doing better than me. And I'm like, oh man, I have no problem saying this book looks like a book that would go to this editor and then being like, I'll make the introduction. So but cool. On the same token though, if I don't think a book is good enough, I'm going to tell you why. And I'm not doing it because I'm trying to be mean. I think that if anyone can give you advice that's going to shorten the amount of time for you to grow into the creator that you want to be, then you should take it. There's no ego in this. In my opinion, there's no ego in this. Other creators will adamantly tell you that same thing, but goddamn well that they're crazy egomaniacs. I'm just not one of them because I've been banging my head up against the wall for so long. I'm numb to all of it. But yeah, I mean, send me your shit, I guess. We'll talk.
Man. That's awesome. That's all. I love that, man. There's just so much fucking respect for that. I know David Pepos and Rylan Grant. They offer their advice all the time to people. Yep. So I mean, it's like I said, it's a community. Yep. And I mean, you never know who you end up giving advice to.
Those two guys are they're dear friends. Pepos, I was one of the first people he sent Spencer and Locke to in that book. I remember reading the 4th issue. I think that he was getting it done when we said yes to the book. And so he sent me the whole book and I read it through. And I read it through one morning in bed. My wife was asleep and I woke her up with my tears. I was crying about this book just moved the shit out of me.
Right.
And then I texted David and I said, David, you did it. This is fantastic. I can't wait to publish it. I love you. Thank you for moving me to emotion. Right. And then my wife woke up as I was texting and she's like, why are you crying? And I showed her the pages that made me cry. And I fucking cried again. I cried twice, David. It's your fault. And he already knows this. But if you guys haven't read David's early work, I know Dave's working for Moon Knight. He's working for Marvel doing Moon Knight. He just did Savage Avengers. He's working on Punisher.
Yeah. Man, it's so awesome because when he was first on the podcast, the second volume of Spencer and Locke had just come out and he was promoting Going to the Chapel.
Yep.
And I mean, just from Going to the Chapel to where he is now, man.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I can't think of many Marvel writers that have as many titles under their name in the last 6 months as David Pepos.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
crazy.
He is a fountain of ideas. If you get him rolling, he won't shut the fuck up. He's just going to go and tell you everything. I want to play poker against you, David, because honestly, I feel like you're going to tell me what's in your hand all day long. And I'm just like, easy money. But he is.
I know he's made me hold on to so many fucking secrets, man. Like getting to know about Savage Avengers way before that was. I mean, he told me he was like, I don't even think Ryland knows this yet, but like Savage Avengers. Is
like Ryland is like a jacked ass nerd. Like he's like a good looking jack dude.
I say he's the most interesting man on the planet.
Yeah.
Like he does karate and he's a monk and you know, fucking screenwriter. And,
he's great. I did just do a panel with him in San Diego, didn't I? That's right.
Sir.
Yeah. That was a weird panel. That was a weird panel, man. We'll talk about that
quite
offline.
The panel.
So strange. But it really that panel did make me feel like I could do something like this and kind of speak my mind, or at least tell people where I came from and, you know, maybe partially why things happened the way they did. But I sort of got outed on that panel. Like someone was talking about Action Lab and how I just disappeared, like in a weird, like accusatory way. And it was one of the panelists. And I was just like, whoa.
Wow.
No, that's not the way that works. Oh, I'm good. Thanks. I was like, that's not the way that went down. And it's just because people didn't know where I was and where I was coming from and the whole thing. So I like basically told this story on that panel because I left that company because I knew that if I stayed, it was not going to be good for me, for anyone, you know. And then I thought maybe if I leave, then it'll die and they can get their shit back. And then now it's just the two dudes and they're still holding on to dear life with this thing. And I'm like, God, no, don't do it. Just give it up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Hey, maybe they'll listen to this and grow a conscience. I don't know.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Either they're not going to listen to it, but they're definitely not going to grow a conscience. That's what I mean. Like it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, it's all going to work out. I want to let everyone know that it's all going to work out at the end of the day. And if you're waiting for the shoe to drop with them, while you're waiting, go make a book. Go make a book that speaks to you and that you care about just as much as that book.
Yeah. And
put it out under your terms.
Yeah.
You know, I have. You know what I mean? Like they still have ownership or rights to. I did like 6 books there, and I only have rights back for 1 because I bought it back.
Damn.
And it was a lot of money.
Damn.
Yeah. And I was like, well, at the end of the day, this book is the one book that I am most proud of. It's the one that I feel it reflects most my writing and also my life. And I was like, I can't have anyone else own that. So I feel your pain. And I took maybe the easy route by buying it. And I'm not saying everyone's in that position to be able to do that. But like for me, everyone's like, well, what about this book? When are you going to put more of that out? When is More Infinite 7 going to come out? And I'm like, probably never. But I signed that contract. I signed that contract knowing that well after everyone was like, what, this contract sucks. I'm like, yeah, it is. And then I'm like, I'm going to sign it like an idiot. But whatever.
You want to believe a lot of time when you're signing those contracts and your gut's just turning, you still want to believe that there's something good there. You want to think that, well, yeah, no, this could go wrong, but maybe the people on the other end of this have a conscience and this is all just to scare you into acting right. But in the end, no. Business is business, and they're going to hold you to every fucking word of that contract.
And a lot of that is because people think that success is getting published by someone else. But like that's the thing. Like I think we can end here, but there are only like 4 or 5 watermarks of success. The first thing is doing it, making it, getting it done, right? And then the second avenue of success, or the second mark of success, is putting it out in any form that you feel comfortable doing it.
Mhm.
A web comic, a fucking what is that scrolling one that everyone uses? All the kids use.
Webtoons or
Webtoon.
yeah.
Zines back in the day, man, in the 80s, that we were just stapling shit together.
Yeah.
Kickstarters, publishers, whatever. It's all the same level of success, putting it out, right? The third level of success isn't even money. The third level of success is getting it read.
Right.
Someone read my book, right?
Yep.
Someone bought my book. That's still not success. Someone cared enough to buy it. The fourth level of success is you moved the reader to an emotion.
Yes.
I cried during David Pepos's Spencer and Locke. Someone fucking hated my book and wrote a scathing review. I don't care.
You read it.
You read it, and I pissed you off so
Yeah.
hard that you wrote an article about
Yeah.
it. I am so
You just took
flattered.
2 hours of your day because of me.
Because
Yeah.
of me,
Yeah.
right? That's success.
Yep.
That's not failure. A bad review is a great thing. Like
Yep.
I say, go for it. Like
Yep.
I put bad reviews on the back of my books all the time.
I love that.
It's the best.
That's
It's like
awesome.
it's like the best indie book of 2019. Mind-blowingly innovative. Blah 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 blah. And then it's like this book just fucking sucks, and I hate it so much, and I want to kill him. I put that on the back, and like I'm like, yeah, that's the one, man. That's the shit. And then the fifth level is literally fortune and glory success, right? But there are 4 levels before fortune and glory that you have to consider as success. If you don't, you're going to quit. You're going to beat yourself up and then quit making shit, So think about it a little bit, Contracts aside, think about that.
Yeah.
So,
Man, this is all amazing advice.
yeah.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun.
Oh, it's been good. It's been good. I was actually expecting you to ask more dirt. Give me more dirt. Tell me about all that.
I could ask some questions for sure. I definitely could. There's one thing that has been kind of lingering with me, and I've noticed, like you said, you noticed this decline over the last 3 years. Well, there was a change in regime at Scout. Charlie
left. He stepped down. Yeah.
And everything just it feels sporadic now. The way they used to do these subscription boxes and all of this stuff, and I feel like they were more so about the retailer. When Charlie was running things. Is there something to that? The way things are being run there now.
I can't speak to the way they operate because I just have a book there, right? But I know Charlie was very creator forward. The editing staff is still the same, and they're all
It is
great.
still the editors. Okay.
I think that they had a couple of bumps in the road, and business aside, I think that there was a hurricane in Florida where they were home based, and I think that that really put not a pause, but it was a huge speed bump that they had to get over to get back to publishing on a consistent basis. I think that was a big thing. Paper product went up, and I know that just the cost of paper went up, and they do everything locally, I think, in Florida, and I think that that's what happened. Was there was a huge hurricane, and it really messed them up.
Okay.
Everyone I've worked with there has been solid as hell. They do some things that I'm like, I don't know if I would do things that way. They put a first issue out and then they wait 3 months to put the second in previews.
Yeah.
I know why they do that because of the way the business is run. It's you order books through Diamond or a catalog, and then that book doesn't come out for two months, but then the next issue's in the next catalog. So now I've got basically 3 issues in a catalog that I don't know what they look like before the first issue even comes out. So Scout does it so that you can see the first issue at least before deciding whether or not you want.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then they do certain books where they'll put a first issue out because they do really well with first issues and whatnot and all that good stuff. But they then they go straight to trade.
Yeah.
So you may see
the non-stopper, I think is what they call
it.
Yeah. They put out 1 issue and then
But what they'll do is wait 4 months or 5 months before the trade. So even then you might get this first issue and be like, well, where's the rest or where's the trade? So there's a lot of the way they're doing business is smart given the conditions of the business. But I would say that the business is fucked up to begin with. At the distributor level, the way businesses run is a little funky. That's why when we become distributors, it's going to change everything.
Fucking A.
Hey, kickstart my heart, baby. We're going to do that. No, we're not going to listen to that. Now that fucking Motley Crue song's going to be stuck in my head.
Shit.
Oh, no. But yeah, I mean, I think that like everyone's doing it the way they're doing it based on who their distributors are, who they're partnering with more so than the other. And quite frankly, I think that Scout makes more money online than they do in comic shops. So it could be a margin thing.
No, that makes sense.
You know, and again, not a diss, just straight up business is business, you know? And I would never, unless you're really dicking someone over, like I would never be like bad business practices, right? Because they're working within a system that is finicky and funky and, you know, really quick to alienate. You know, like when retailers hate a company, they just fucking hate that company and we're never going to buy any of it, you know? Like I know tons of stores that would have made a ton of money making zombie tramp money and they would never carry that shit in their stores. And I'm like, but you have a client base for it that you could grow, and they would just never do it. All ages books are a tough one because like, you know, and not just, this is now off of Scout. This is just the business of all ages books is really hard because attention spans are really, really short.
Mm-hmm.
And given the way that the comic system is built where you're ordering before you can see it, kids don't come into comic shops as frequently. They may come in every 6 months. So it's better for you to make an all ages trade paperback or work with a book distributor like Penguin or Random House or Scholastic than to do it through comic shops, because comic shops will put it in their corner and it'll just sit there forever and no one ever even knows it's there. Like you'll notice that every time you walk into a comic shop, the all ages stuff is right up front. You walk right past it, you never even think about it. That's not, and that's almost every comic shop I've ever been into, which is kind of bonkers. Yeah. You know? I mean, hell, and it's not a diss. It's just, I think what you need to do is mix those comics in with your everyday comics and have a header that says this is appropriate for ages, yada, 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 yada. You know, like, but I shouldn't be shopping for Spider-Man and not Asterix or not, you know, by the way, Asterix came out like when I was in the 1960s or something. So that's a really bad fucking, and you know, my Tintins, but you know what I'm saying? Like whatever the new fucking thing is, you know, like that shit should be on the same shelf as Daredevil. You know what I mean? Not that old shit. That old shit could be in your trade paperbacks because that's where that would reside. But yeah, if a new book comes out, how do I know it's new if it's on that little kid rack?
Right.
Like I don't fucking know anything, you know? Maybe move it to the kid rack eventually, but I think that those books need to stay on your new book rack for 6 months because your kids that are coming in are only coming in once every 6 months. And then you know what's going to happen? The dad or mom are going to come in with the kid and they're going to be like, go look at these comics over here in this corner, right? But if you're looking through comics and you want your kid to read, you should be able to be looking for the things that you want and what they want at the same time. Because if not, maybe you're not thinking I need to buy something for my kid right now. So you're just going to walk out the door and not even look at that other section. And then how often is that kid coming into the comic shop with you? Yeah. I do a lot of all ages books, but like, you know, I'm talking to book publishers now and they're like, we don't want your single issues. Like you could write it like single issues, but don't, you know, it's got to be a trade paperback or a graphic novel.
Right.
So like, but my brain works in 24 pages. So I'm always writing comic books, right? So I'm just writing a graphic novel in 4 chapters instead, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Are those people?
Yep.
Yeah? People are watching this shit?
Oh, yeah, people are watching.
Oh, no shit. Nice. I should have taken my shirt off. What was I doing, man? Topless Dave. But yeah, I mean, again, but that's also speaking to where do you want to be published, right? Like if Scout was great. I sent him a book and a day later they're like, we want it. I was like, shit, easy, right? Yeah. And then there's been times when I've been like, guys, this is a book that's perfect for you. Why aren't we publishing this book together? And then they're like, or they don't get back to you, or like, it's just not the right time, or, you know, I haven't heard you suck in a while, but you know, like you get that little like gist like, oh, they think I'm not good or whatever. but yeah, it really is catering to your audience and knowing where you're at. And like I said, Scout just has a business practice and a business model that works for them. Is it a business practice that works for you? Maybe that's a question that they need to answer for themselves. How do I grow my business? How do I get the retailers on board with Scout 100%? How am I going to be the next boom or whatever it may be, right? But those are questions for them to ask and answer for themselves. It's not a question I can answer for them. For me, I have a smattering of books that are books that I want to publish myself. And then there are certain books that I'm like, oh, I could probably sell a lot of these if I went to that company, But at the end of the day, selling a lot of books would be great, but it's not necessarily what I call success. For me, success is literally like people reading it and being driven to emotion.
Yeah.
That's number one. And eventually the money comes.
Right. Right.
It may take 20 years or whatever, but it comes, So don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged by failure. Failure is a fucking opportunity. Like, it's an opportunity for you to reassess what's important to you.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for you to refine what you did, what you can do better, what you did wrong, address it all, evolve. If you signed a bad contract, you're never going to do it again. That's the one thing that you'll learn from those bad contracts. So once you've done that, never, ever, ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt, man.
Yeah.
Now you read
Unless you're me, and then you're an idiot. So don't be an idiot,
Yeah, but I guess if you're being an idiot on purpose, then it's.
I guess everyone's jumping off this bridge into this water. I better do it too. The fucking Lost Boys just hanging from the fucking thing. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, brother, we need another Macho Man.
Oh my god. What,
I was waiting for the opportunity, and it never really came.
Oh my god. No, we can't. You can't say came and then I talk about cream. So we can just leave it at that. We'll go almost R-rated right there at the end, and then just cut it off.
There we go.
Awesome.
Well, brother, this has been awesome.
Yeah,
man.
it's been great. It's been great.
Well, next time we'll talk about your books and stuff, and there's
books.
lots to dive into. I've already been warned that you're a fountain when it comes to these things, and I love it. I got to sit back and let you do my job for me today, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been really fun.
Man, it really has been. So, thanks for coming by.
Of course.
Let's
but I would say keep in touch, but we're super local, so we're already in touch, and that's
we
it.
could bump into each other at Walmart or something.
But I mean, again, it's I wouldn't have known about the shop had you not stopped and talked, and if I wasn't available to talk,
Right.
So it's like I said, comics are a really small business, and there's a lot of dirt, and there's a lot of juiciness, but there's also just a lot of hard work and creative ass people making stuff so that you can read it on the toilet.
Yeah.
So take extra long on that toilet, everybody.
Yeah, man. Study those panels.
Yeah.
Study and grunt, man.
Study those panels. Oh, the cream will rise to the top.
That's right. There we go. All right. See ya, fuckers.
Got it.